the Ark of the Covenant. This wasn't just any box, it was the heart of Israel, a golden chest crafted with care. Inside rested the very presence of God. For centuries the Ark had journeyed with Israel. It was a symbol of their faith, a reminder of God's power and love. Now King David desired to bring the Ark to Jerusalem. He wanted his capital city to be the dwelling place of God. David yearned for God's presence in his life and in his kingdom. He knew the Ark represented God's blessing and guidance. Bringing the Ark to Jerusalem would be a testament to his faith. It would also unite his people under the banner of their God. The Ark was in Bala in the house of Abinadab. It had been there for many years. David gathered 30,000 men. These were the best of Israel, strong and faithful warriors. The journey from Bala to Jerusalem was not long, but it was significant. Every step was a step closer to God. David wanted this to be a joyous occasion. He wanted everyone to understand the importance of the Ark. The procession set out with great anticipation. The Ark, placed on a new cart, led the way. David and the Israelites walked alongside, their hearts filled with reverence and hope. They were bringing God back to the center of their lives. The journey was a celebration. David wanted it to be unforgettable. He ordered his men to sing songs of praise. The air was filled with the sounds of lyres, harps, tambourines, and cymbals. The people danced and sang. They shouted for joy. This was a day of victory, a day to celebrate their God. David himself danced with all his might. His heart overflowed with joy. The music was not just for entertainment, it was an expression of worship. It was a way for the people to show their love and devotion to God. They recognized the significance of the Ark. They understood that God's presence was returning to their midst. The procession continued. The mood was joyous. Suddenly, disaster struck. The oxen stumbled and the cart carrying the Ark shook violently. Uzzah, one of the men assigned to guide the cart, reached out his hand. He wanted to steady the Ark. He didn't want it to fall. In that instant, the Lord's anger burned against Uzzah. God struck him down. Uzzah died right there beside the Ark. The celebration turned to horror. The music stopped. The laughter died in their throats. The people trembled in fear. Joy turned to sorrow. What had been a day of triumph was now a day of tragedy. Section 5. Fear and Uncertainty. David questions God's actions. David was stunned. He had never felt such a mix of emotions before. His heart was filled with fear. He was angry. Anger at the suddenness of the event and fear of what it meant for his people and his leadership. Why had God done this? What was the purpose behind such a harsh action? Why had God taken Uzzah's life? Uzzah had only tried to steady the Ark, to protect it. Didn't God want the Ark to be in Jerusalem? Wasn't this the divine plan all along? David was afraid to bring the Ark into the city. He feared further wrath from God. He didn't understand God's anger. It was a mystery that weighed heavily on his heart. He decided to leave the Ark at the house of Obed-Edom, a Gittite. It was a decision made out of desperation and caution. It was a temporary measure. David needed to find clarity and seek God's guidance. David needed time to understand what had happened. He needed to reflect on his actions and God's will. This was a time of questioning for David, a time to seek answers and understand the divine message. He had been so sure of God's blessing. Now everything seemed uncertain. Now he was filled with doubt about his decisions, his leadership, and his understanding of God's will. The death of Uzzah was a stark reminder of God's holiness and power. It was a lesson that could not be ignored. It showed that approaching God required reverence and obedience. David realized that he needed to approach God with a humble heart and a clear mind. He prayed for wisdom and understanding, hoping to find the right path forward. In his heart, David knew that with time and faith he would find the answers he sought. Section 6. Blessings at Obed-Edom's house. The Ark brings prosperity. The Ark remained in Obed-Edom's house for 3 months. During this period, the presence of the Ark brought about a transformation that was nothing short of miraculous. During that time, something remarkable happened. The household of Obed-Edom experienced an unprecedented wave of blessings. The Lord blessed Obed-Edom and his entire household. Their crops flourished beyond expectation, yielding bountiful harvests. Their livestock multiplied at an extraordinary rate, filling their pastures. Their family prospered in every way. Joy and gratitude filled their home as they celebrated their newfound prosperity, giving thanks for the divine favor they had received. Word of Obed-Edom's blessings reached David. The news spread quickly, and it wasn't long before David heard of the extraordinary events taking place in Obed-Edom's household. He realized that God's presence brought not only judgment, but also great favor. This revelation was profound for David, who had been grappling with fear and uncertainty. His fear began to subside. The realization that God's presence could bring such immense blessings was a turning point for him. He understood that God was not against him. Instead, he saw that his previous actions were part of a divine plan and that he had acted with righteous judgment. He had simply acted with righteous judgment. This understanding gave him a renewed sense of purpose and determination. The story of Obed-Edom is a reminder that God's presence brings blessing. It serves as a powerful testament to the transformative power of divine favor. Even though tragedy had struck, God's grace was still evident. The blessings bestowed upon Obed-Edom's household were a clear sign of this grace. It gave David the courage he needed to continue his mission. The support and encouragement from his people further strengthened his resolve. He knew he had to bring the ark to Jerusalem. With renewed faith and determination, David prepared to lead the procession, ensuring that the ark would be brought to its rightful place in the heart of the city. David gathered his people once more. This time, they approached the ark with reverence and care. They followed the instructions God had given to Moses. The ark was to be carried on the shoulders of the Levites, not on a cart. Step by step, they carried the ark toward Jerusalem. With each step, they affirmed their faith in God. They acknowledged His holiness. They sought His forgiveness. Finally, they reached the city. The ark, the symbol of God's presence, was placed in the city of David. It was a time of great rejoicing. The people celebrated with all their hearts. They offered sacrifices to God. They sang songs of praise. They danced before the Lord. David, filled with joy, danced before the ark. He wore a linen ephod, a simple garment. He didn't care about his appearance. All that mattered was expressing his love for God. His movements were uninhibited, full of passion. He held nothing back. He danced with abandon, celebrating God's presence in his city. Some people watched David and were inspired. They saw his genuine love for God. They saw his humility and his joy. They too began to dance and sing. Not everyone approved of David's actions. Michal, David's wife, watched from a window. She was the daughter of Saul, the former king. She was accustomed to a different kind of royalty. She saw David's dancing as undignified, even shameful. When David returned home, Michal confronted him. She scorned his behavior. She said he had acted like a foolish man, exposing himself before the servants. David's response was immediate and powerful. He told Michal that he was not ashamed. He had danced before the Lord. He would humble himself even more if it meant honoring God. The arrival of the ark in Jerusalem was a pivotal moment for David and for Israel. It was not just a physical relocation of a sacred object, but a deeply spiritual event that resonated throughout the nation. The ark symbolized God's presence and favor, and its arrival in the capital city was seen as a divine endorsement of David's kingship. It marked a new era of faith and worship. It unified the nation in a way that had never been seen before. The people of Israel, who had been divided by tribal loyalties and internal conflicts, found a common ground in their reverence for the ark. This unity was crucial for the stability and growth of the kingdom. It established Jerusalem as the spiritual center of the kingdom. The city, already significant for its political and military importance, now became the heart of Israel's religious life. Pilgrims from all over the nation would come to Jerusalem to worship, pray, and offer sacrifices, making it a bustling hub of spiritual activity. David's example, his unwavering faith and his passionate worship left an indelible mark on Israel. He was not just a king, but a spiritual leader who guided his people in their relationship with God. His personal devotion and public displays of worship set a standard for the nation. He showed his people that true worship involved the heart, not just outward rituals. David's heartfelt prayers and songs of praise demonstrated that genuine worship was about a deep personal connection with God. This was a transformative message for the Israelites, who had often focused on ritualistic practices. He taught them to approach God with reverence and joy. The presence of the Ark in Jerusalem became a focal point for this new understanding of worship. People learned to come before God with a sense of awe and gratitude, celebrating his presence among them with joy and reverence. The Ark remained in Jerusalem, a testament to God's presence among his people. It was a constant reminder that God was with them, guiding and protecting them. The Ark's presence in the city reinforced the idea that Jerusalem was not just the political capital, but also the spiritual heart of the nation. It served as a reminder of his power, his holiness, and his love. The Ark was more than a religious artifact. It was a symbol of the covenant between God and Israel. It reminded the people of God's promises and his expectations of them. The journey of the Ark from Bala to Jerusalem became a story passed down through generations. This journey was not just a physical movement, but a spiritual pilgrimage that highlighted the faith and obedience of the people. A story of faith, obedience, and the boundless love of God. The narrative of the Ark's journey and its impact on Israel became a foundational story for the nation, illustrating the profound relationship between God and his people.